Hi there, Perennial Pride listeners. Thanks for joining me on this podcast. Exciting to be on today. Today I'm by myself and just had some recent thoughts that I wanted to share as relates to freedom. Freedom gets thrown around in this world, and it's something that certainly is, as I've gotten older, it's certainly meant much more to me, and I've paid more attention to it. I think if we take a look at what's happening around this world today, I think freedom is being challenged, not only in our own country, but globally. Think about the world we live in now, and it seems like there's probably more countries that are focused on controlling their own government and countries and going against the grain of democracy versus those that are. And it's a big challenge today, and it can be quite scary. And so, when I think about these sorts of things about freedom and control, it really harps back to what we can do individually for ourselves and what we can take responsibility for and things we can control or at least influence. And, before getting too deep in that, the thing that I think about freedom, and, this is kind of a sidebar thing, I always think of Braveheart. And at the end of the movie, when he screams it and, going through excruciating pain and giving his life for something he truly believed in, and it was really inspirational, and it'll stick with me forever. And it's one of those iconic movie moments. And you just say, man, to have that much passion and sort of drive for that freedom and what it means, and we can easily take that for granted. I know I do on occasion, and it's something for us to sometimes reflect on. And oftentimes when I'm talking to individuals and people that come across my network or people that may become clients of mine, what is your definition of freedom? And it's interesting when you hear that from people, because it's not something that probably most people are talking about very frequently. And maybe you're not really testing it. So I figured the easiest way is to look at the definitions in the dictionary. And not surprising, there's a whole host of different definitions, but I pulled out a few just to chat about today and discuss a little bit more how that may impact us in our lives, certainly for me personally, but give you some food for thought around what it may mean for you in your life and your family and what you're trying to achieve while you're on this earth. So the first definition I came across was the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. And certainly I think of it, freedom of choice, freedom of speech, all those sorts of things. And it's something obviously very powerful in this country. And, with the advent of social media and news, I mean, it's just like information and people are providing their opinions and battling each other all over the place. So, sometimes a good thing can get bad, but, it's still, I'd rather have some ability to have those opinions shared and discussions, hopefully productive ones, in good environments, to have those conversations. And growing up in this country, as a second generation immigrant here, you kind of sort of learn and adapt to things. And as I've gotten older, I've reflected on even my life to think that maybe for a lot of parts of it that I didn't leverage that freedom. I think I probably stayed on the path of what is, traditional, typical, and tried to follow kind of the conventional wisdom around how to act and how to strive for things and what success means in this country, and fit into a world of, I spent most of my life in corporate America, to fit into that environment and try to play nicely in the sand, so to speak. And I think it hindered my freedom of choice. I probably didn't speak my mind all the time because I wanted to stay in that bubble. I had to dress a certain way. And I think a lot of us are in that mode to kind of morph into what is considered acceptable. And maybe it goes against our personal beliefs and, what we would like to do. But, we're trying to, conform in a lot of ways. And I think I remember my sister saying this one time, that we can often, wear these masks that, hide kind of our true feelings and keep us from saying the things we want to say and do the things we want to do. So, and that's just what our society sometimes kind of puts on us, and we just follow it. And, that's something that I've come to grow to understand. And I understand the power of that, because, If we're driven to success, and it's a lot of externally focused sort of things of what success and wealth and whatever looks like, and we can easily go down and follow suit there because that's what we're supposed to do, and it keeps us from being able to express ourselves, and potentially limits our ability to become even more than we are, or could be, and put some constraints on us. So it's something at least to test and think about, and maybe frees us up to become more, and really share our creativity and innovation, and sort of help us be more open to other people's ideas too. And it's just something certainly I've grown to personally appreciate more than ever. The second one, the definition, which was interesting, was the power of self-determination attributed to the will, the quality of being independent of fate or necessity. And really interesting. And it follows suit in some respects. What I was talking about, the first sort of part of this is, we're on this life for a certain amount of time, and we all know there's a certainty that comes with this, is that our clock is ticking, and you can look at it in a positive or negative way. I tend to go on the side of thinking of it a positive, that I'm only here for a certain amount of time. I don't know what that is, hopefully for a long time, but how do I use my time most efficiently, wisely, for the biggest impact I could have for myself and my families? But again, when you're following a path that someone else is dictating for you, you may not be able to exhibit and create the life that you truly want to live. And it's sometimes difficult because, that is, to follow a course that is set out, say, this is success. This is how you gain success. Go to school, get a job, raise a family, buy the big house, whatever it is, and invest in your 401k. These are things that are told to us that you're supposed to do to live a fulfilling and successful life. And it's probably easier to follow that path as opposed to saying, what do I truly want out of life? How would I want to live each day? You often come across that question. People are like, okay, well, if money was no object, what would you do? And I don't know if most people could even answer that question, because we haven't had to kind of push ourselves to think, well, what would we actually want out of life? How do I want to spend my days and hours, and what do I want to impact? And because we are so externally sort of directed, that we can lose sight of that, and our true nature of what we want maybe gets put on the back burner, or we don't follow it, or we don't push ourselves to think about that. And it's difficult. I spent as I mentioned, most of my life in corporate America, not getting out of it and kind of building my own life. I could tell it was challenging. It's like, now I have all the time, more time in my life, and freedom to do more things, but then it puts you onus on me. Like, what am I supposed to do? What do I want to do? What do I want to do that I didn't have a chance to do before? That's much more difficult. And I guess that's what a lot of folks maybe struggle with, especially if you think about even retirement, like moving from working all your life and having a purpose and getting into a rhythm. And then all of a sudden you got to flip the switch and say, okay, now I have all the free time, or what the heck am I going to do? And I know there are many that I've heard that just struggle with that, because that freedom of your life and your time now causes you to have to figure that out, right? What am I going to do now to really get the most out of the day? So, but I think it's one of those fascinating things that I've kind of grown and matured to say, that is a powerful thing to be able to do, is to say, what do I want my life to look like, and how do I have the resources or position things in my life to best support it? And versus letting our jobs and our careers drive us to how our lives are. It's just a different way of approaching it, and it's a fascinating area to get into, and for people who are maybe stuck in jobs that they hate and don't see a light at the end of the tunnel, it's important to maybe spend some time in this space and thinking about that, and thinking, what would I do if I could get out of what I'm doing today if it's not fulfilling or seems endless, right? There's people who are maybe counting down the days to retirement and maybe have 10 more years. I said, well, could be a heck of a long time, and there's no guarantee all that will happen. So what could you do today to sort of, start shifting the boat to something that's more aligned to what you want out of life versus what maybe society says we're supposed to have? And the last one that I thought kind of struck me in terms of a definition freedom is unrestricted use of something. And the one the one example they have, the dog is happy having the freedom of the house when we are out. Now I don't know about you, my house, my two dogs, they have quite the reign of the house, and they got a good life. Let's just say that, and we treat them real well, and it's fun to watch them. But they have a lot of freedom, but we dictate their lives, right, in terms of what they have. And so when we think about unrestricted use of something, right, of our biggest resource that we have is our time. And so, I often come across people that they say, I just don't have enough time, right? I wish I had the time for that. Like, it's just, and frankly, to be honest, I think when people really reflect on it, they know they have more time. It's just they're prioritizing differently, right? And so if something's important enough, we make the time, and that is our scarcest resource. So it's figuring out how do we use that to our best ability and control more of that. And that takes some energy. Again, this goes back to, it's easier to kind of follow something, because then we don't have to have the independent thought around it, right? I fell into this trap for sure. But the power to have that, control is really huge, and gives you more fulfillment, I think, in the long run. So I want to kind of frame this now from so what happens in our financial lives, because in a world when we're trying to create the lives we want to have, to impact the things in our lives we want to impact, and for those who are interested in creating legacy wealth and perpetuating that for their kids and others around them, it takes some inertia and thinking of how you can do that. But in the world of personal finances, where I've grown to become an expert, is that we have so many factors that are trying to control what we're doing with our wealth and extract more of it, right? They're in business, and they're trying to extract our wealth and use it in a way that they see fit, whether it's profits or to run the government or whatever. And there's a lot of factors that are causing us to just follow this path. And it's really, and when you really step back from it, and I learned this through my own sort of journey with this, is that I didn't have control of what was happening in my wealth for the most part. I mean, there were a lot of things, and a lot of my money was getting away from me when I really looked at it. And so, obviously when we look at the players involved with our financial world today, there's a lot, but when we think about it, from banks, right? Banks are obviously a big component of what we do in our lives. Financing is so big in what we do, whether we pay cash or we're borrowing money to grow businesses or fund our lifestyle, whatever, from college. They're an important factor in what we do and how they dictate our lives. The other arm, obviously, is financial institutions, right? This is now in the world of investing. Like, when I see my son, like, he takes his personal financial class in high school, where they teach you, it's a stock market, right? This is where you go invest. So obviously we know that investing is one aspect of our personal finances, but obviously the financial institutions have incentive to obviously they want our money, right? And they want it frequently, and they want to hold on to it. So it's something we have to be mindful of. They have some purpose, and we just have to be understanding what's happening there. And then obviously the last one's the government. Government controls a lot of things, and I'm certainly a proponent of less regulation, less sort of control of that, and allow markets to do what they do. And so our government obviously has tilted towards more control and more involvement in our lives in general, for the good or bad. And unfortunately, a lot of it is now coming to even a bigger sort of issue when you have the factor in the Federal Reserve involved, the central banks, and across the globe this is happening. And it's obviously impacting kind of anything from markets to how we borrow. All those things are a factor. So those are, to me, the big areas that are really controlling life. And when I thought about it, when I was going through my own journey with this, it was eye-opening, right? Because when you think of banks, and one of our biggest expenses are interest. Whether it's to funding our lifestyle through credit cards, to borrowing for mortgages, for car loans, to student loans. I mean, the massive amount of debt that has consumed this world globally, not even just in the U.S., is astounding. Obviously, you look at the government debt today, we're talking $30+ trillion. You can't even kind of really think about what that really means, but it's sizable. So we're financing quite a bit. And for us personally in our financial lives, we're expending a lot of money on interest to financial institutions that we don't own and control. And so that's really important key to think about how we can keep more of that interest in our wealth growing for us, as opposed to transferring it to entities like that. Now they serve a purpose. We just have to figure out how we can kind of replicate that environment. And that's where I came across the concept of a family bank or infinite banking to control more of that wealth and control the financing arm of it all. And so that's where I help folks learn about that, to see how they can store their wealth somewhere that could be productive and immune from our next friend we'll talk about is taxation, and control the financing arm of that. So I don't always have to rely on the banking system to do that for me. And that's something that a lot of families over, a lot of wealthy families over time views, whether it be Rockefellers, and, that they've used that as one of the pieces of their foundation to help control more of their wealth and their financing for businesses and growth and education. So it's just something that is not perpetuated naturally in typical finance, because it'll take away from what we're going to go to next is financial institutions, right? And so financial institutions, obviously, like I was mentioning, they want our money. They want it constantly, and they want to hold on to it for a long period of time. And so they can make money off of it, right? It's not a secret. And so we've been sort of positioned that way, that's the way you invest. That's how we grow our wealth. But we hand that off to others to manage, and we're taking a lot of the risk, but they're still benefiting from the financial arm of it, from fees and they can hold on to it for a while, right? And so, for a lot of folks who are thinking about personal finances and where to invest, that's naturally where people go is, where do I invest? And I think in a general sense, a lot of people have been convinced that you're just not capable of traversing the complexities of investing. And yes, it does require education and learning, but I think the vast majority of people are investing in things that they don't understand and cannot control. And so it's adding more fuel and risk and volatility to it all. And people are washing their hands and say, I don't even know what to do with that. I don't know what's going to happen. And so that to me is a scary spot to be putting a lot of our assets. So this is where it gets back to really fundamentally thinking about, well, where can I start learning about investing in a way into assets that I can maybe own and control more of, whether it be your business or real estate. And it definitely takes some more energy, but you can mitigate some of that risk because you just know more. There's a thought of, diversification. Some people think that's good or bad, right? There's different opinions about it, but I think there is something to be said around investing in things you know and understand, right? And staying in your lane in some respect, right? Obviously, there is a benefit to diversification because things will change and losses will occur and markets will change over time. So having your eggs all in one basket can be dangerous. But if you know and understand an area better, I truly believe it reduces your risk and gives you more control over what's happening. And so, but it does take some energy. And so it does require you to learn more, investigate more, and try to find trusted partners that you can rely on to give you proper advice. But then it's ultimately your decision, right? You're empowered to make those decisions. So really, that's why a lot of the foundational pieces we're investing in is not so much just giving to somebody to manage, but putting into things that you have more sort of leverage to pull when needed and control. And so the last area that, is extracting our freedom of our wealth and probably, obviously impacts our lives is taxes, right? Taxes that were supposed to be temporary, right? In 13 or whatever when it started. And now it's like you walk 2 steps, you're going to run to another tax, whether it be, income tax or property tax or sales tax, you name it. And inflation is that invisible tax. So there's a lot of ways that taxes are really impacting our daily lives and controlling what we do. And it's being done purposely. I mean, that tax code itself is set up, and this is from Tom Wheelwright, and he's a tremendous books on this tax-free wealth, and that it's basically a set of incentives, right? The government put together these sorts of things to incent us to do certain things, and as you follow them and learn about them, you're going to increase your chance of reducing your taxes or mitigating them and keeping more of your wealth. But it takes some energy to learn about them, whether it be starting a business, getting into real estate, investing, putting some money into life insurance, protecting family, donations. Like there's a lot of things to learn about, but just recognizing that there's a different shift and pivot away from what is typical, right? We don't have control over this tax. We just live and deal with it. Well, that is not true. There are ways to do it, to reduce it, and reduce it not just by deferring it, but like completely eliminating it or reducing it for long periods of time or generations. And that requires just learning more. Like we talk about deferring taxes in, say, a qualified plan like 401k or IRA. And that's what we're taught. That's where a lot of people's wealth is going, and a lot of it's going into building up equity in your homes, right? So we're deferring the use of all these dollars for long periods of time. And so it keeps us out of jobs, keeps us humming along, paying more taxes. And, so you can easily continue to get on. And that's where I was at, right? I was just following this path. And I said, okay, someday I'll get to use and benefit and enjoy this money. Well, listen, I think there's definitely a need to invest in things that have growth opportunities to them. But, putting money and investments into things to help generate cash flow, that's how you're going to live, right? And this is the type of thing that, trying to introduce that early in life. And that's when I made the transition to think about how to invest in assets that actually bring me cash, not 10, 20 years from now, but now, right? That I can use to live my life and enjoy. And it gives me more control and freedom of my life because I don't necessarily have to work in that space if I don't want to, right? Because I have cash flow coming in somewhere else. And we have plenty of other podcasts that are talking about cash flow. But again, this is just changing the thought around this to areas of control of our wealth, investing things that potentially provide some cash flow and that we can control, and mitigating our taxes and reducing them in a legal and way by following what the government wants us to do. These are all success factors that will give you more control and keep more of your wealth and accelerate the use of those dollars, and hopefully give you more freedom in life to maybe choose what you want to do. And I've had the fortune to be able to do that and shift my personal life into areas that I feel more compelled to spend my time and energy. Right. That's getting back to our fundamental thing. Our time is our most valuable asset. And so having cash flow and other sources to help fund our lives so that we can sort of shift our direction of our time to the things that matter most is, I think, ultimately a key recipe to building more success and freedom in our lives, and ultimately freedom to be able to say that I've made the decision to take my life to a direction that serves me best, not what externally has been pushed upon me as a definition of success, but my own definition of success and my values of what I want to become and contribute to the world will come out and allow us to speak our mind and just builds from there. So truly passionate about this, and hopefully this was helpful to kind of open up your eyes a little bit to this, and certainly more than happy to chat with anyone who is interested in learning more about these things, because it ultimately does get back to us owning our own lives. And we could either have someone drive us, or we can take the driver's seat ourselves and dictate where we go. And I know you all have the power to do it if there's a desire to go there. So hope this was helpful, and I'll cut it short here. And certainly feel free to reach out, and you can actually check out the Wealth Beyond the Numbers book too. I go a little bit more into this, and this is something that I share with a little more details around these things to help you build more freedom in your life, and hopefully it will be helpful for you. Take care, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for joining me on this episode today. I really am grateful for you as listeners to the Perennial Pride podcast. I hope you're getting some tremendous value out of it, and hopefully pushing you along your journey to financial freedom. I put this podcast together really to help you get more educated around your finances so that you feel empowered to live the life that you really want. And if you like the content that you heard today or watched, then I would encourage you to go to my website, perennialpride.com. There's tons of other content there. And you can access my book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. You can buy it there on my website. It's a aggregation of a lot of great tips and tools I've learned to not only build my wealth in my accounts, but build wealth in my life and abundance and joy, and something that has a lot of my experiences in the journey that I've been on personally. Hopefully that can be also of value to you as you sort of move forward. So thanks again for being a Perennial Pride listener, and we'll see you on the next episode.